I'd like to welcome everybody to the fifth and final forum session for the Refugee Nurses of Australia for Forum 2020. I'd like to start by paying my respects to the Aboriginal elders, past and present on the land from which I'm coming from today, which is the Gadigal lands of the Tharawal and the Eora Nation. And I do pay my respects to the elders past, present, and those who are emerging. As you know, the forum this year has been virtual. Thank you, COVID. And I have to say it has been highly successful, and I'd like to call and thank particularly our colleagues at the Ingham Institute, particularly Grace McCulley, who has been our very, very knowledgeable webmaster who has rescued us from quite a few online disasters. So once again, Grace, thank you very much. So as you know, this is being recorded and it will be put up on the RNA website at a later date for those of our colleagues who can't join us today for one reason or another. And again, it's been a very successful thing to do. We've had hundreds of hits from our colleagues and other nurses, some international, coming on board. So we have two sessions today, including yours truly. I'll finish off the session, but it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker for the day, Michelle Greenwood. Michelle is a clinical nurse consultant with many years of experience up in the mid-north coast, the beautiful part of New South Wales, around Coffs Harbour. Michelle and I have been colleagues for more years than we'd like to remember. And it's fantastic knowing that we've got, as I said, someone who's so senior and competent in Michelle. Michelle's going to talk about her clinic that's been running all the way through COVID up on the mid-north coast. And I think you'll agree this has been a great achievement. So thank you very much, Michelle, and over to you.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. If I can share my screen. Okay, is that right now? Can you see that? Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, you're good to go there, Michelle.
Okay, all right. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Coffs Harbour. And yeah, it's been pretty challenging this year up here with pretty much all of the services closing down over this time, and we've been the only ones active. We have more than 600 patients in our area that are still without GPs, so we've been actively being still a GP clinic over this time. And the 12th of March, our last arrivals came to Coffs Harbour, and our management asked that all the clinics be taken off-site immediately. So we were halfway through a immunisation clinic and were told to leave. We thought something drastic had happened at the hospital because it was told in such urgency. So luckily we already had an outreach clinic. In that picture, it's our Pathology North, and we always were there on Wednesdays anyway because we found being in the CBD was much better access to our patients. So that was always our Wednesday clinic anyway. So we just rang them up and said, can we come now? And they said, yes, of course. So we took off with all our gear and our immunisations in our esky and went in and asked our patients and gave them a quick call and said, come there instead of coming to the hospital, which actually they were happy about. And we finished our immunisation that day and we saw lots of other people and it went well. But in saying that, then we were stuck because we had to use that facility 5 days a week if we wanted to see patients, and it's very noisy, it's small, there's not much privacy because the walls are so thin, there's no curtains, even though there is a bed in the blood collecting room in case people faint. it floods out the front there. It's like a swimming pool when it rains, and there's limited seating, obviously. So it wasn't very COVID friendly. So we've pretty much struggled with this all year. And after a couple of months, our Child and Family Clinic kindly offered us to have their space on a Monday, which was perfect. So we've been going there every Monday. So, and then I said, we can't go out on Fridays anymore. It's too much. If people need to see us, they're just going to have to come to the hospital on Friday, because carting all our gear around and even our table to use and our computers and everything, it was quite actually exhausting. It sounds ridiculous, but it was. And at the same time, when this all happened, 8 of our 9 GPs decided they didn't want to see patients face to face for fear of catching COVID from one of our patients and taking it back to their own private practice, because their private practices were seeing pretty much no patients face to face and doing all telehealth, which didn't really work well with our patients with the language barrier and the lack of devices. So one of our GPs was happy to see everyone, which he has done so. We increased the GP clinic days to 2 days a week. And then in May, 2 of my female GPs agreed to come back, and they do 2 half-day clinics a month. So we put the ladies into those clinics. But at the moment now, we're actually running out of funds to pay our GP. So there's another challenge. And also we've been asked to come back to the hospital and not go to Child and Family on Mondays. So lots of things happening. So the other problem was that the GP, our patients that actually do have GPs, and obviously there's quite a number of them, they were doing their screening at the door. And because our patients can't speak English, most of them that have arrived in the last few years don't have any, they couldn't even get past the doorkeeper at the practices. So they were coming knocking on our doors because they couldn't phone for an appointment. So then also at the same time, SSI closed their doors, which is a settlement agency here in Coffs Harbour. Starts closed their doors, and North Coast Settlement Services, which is another service that sees people under the Settlement Grants Program for up to 5 years after they arrive. So they all shut their doors. So as you can imagine, more people were coming to our outreach clinic, and obviously the TAFE was closed then and the schools reopened, and then they started requesting COVID swabs on anyone who looked sideways or had a sniffle or a sore throat. So we've been doing lots of COVID testing, not us, but having to refer them to the clinic, which also had its own challenges without their English speaking and not getting interpreters. So we've had a lot of things happen this year. Then other problems were that we had a number of people organised to have surgery down at John Hunter and down at Sydney hospitals, and just coordinating and getting them there was also difficult with transport or lack of transport because all the flights stopped. And so then they had to catch trains, and that takes like 9 to 13 hours, depending if it's John Hunter or depending whether it's Sydney hospitals. And then people had to transfer to other trains in Sydney to get to Westmead Children's Hospital, and then Ronald McDonald House, both in Sydney and in both up here at John Hunter, closed. So then people had to pay for private accommodation in private hotels, which is very expensive, and they didn't get very much back. So all in all, it's been really challenging to get our patients down for surgery and specialised testing that we can't do here. We did do some telehealth, and you often use my office or the clinic room at the hospital. We just had to get people to come in because our laptops at our outreach clinic dropped out frequently. And even though I ordered some devices, as in like iPads, they've never arrived and no one knows where they are, and despite lots of chasing. So we've had lots of challenges. But the good things were that we did flu-vaxxed over 700 people. So that was 700 people we got to see, not counting our drop-ins. We did all the immunisation catch-up clinics, and we found a number of people in the community had fallen through the cracks after going to their GPs and missed out on immunisations. So we've been catching up on all of those. Lots of other health issues were able to be addressed. And the most positive thing was that the community felt very safe and reassured by our continued presence within the community. So just And as you may or may not know, we have not had a case up here for, I can't even remember now how long. And the only cases we did have initially were known and brought in from off the Ruby Princess. So yeah, we've been very blessed in Coffs Harbour, and things are getting back to normal here quite quickly. So thank you, and for listening to my presentation.
So thanks, Michelle. Wow, it's been very challenging, hasn't it? So I note that you were saying that most of your GPs were not doing face-to-face consults, and I think that's the experience for most people. In regards to the telehealth, have the GPs who are seeing people face-to-face now, have they continued offering a telehealth option?
In the community, yeah. What I can gather, yeah, they have been. But a lot of our patients really struggle with that. But in saying that, we've also used telehealth, phone telehealth, not video or Skyping, because people don't have devices within the clinic, just to ring up to see how their medication's going or how they're feeling for a follow-up appointment, not anything initial. But yes, the others are still doing that as well with the telehealth.
Yes, and look, I have to say, here in Sydney, we also went to that telehealth type of option, and it worked well for some people. But for people like our asylum seekers, for instance, where they're absolutely destitute in regards to having any money. It's about the phone, the cost of the phone credit, the gigs that's consumed by. So we've explored some other options around, giving people gift cards, so they can top up their credit. So we're able to see them that way. And look, I think New South Wales Health overall, but has probably done leaps and bounds of about 10 years in regards to how quickly things could be put together. And you're right, yes, equipment ordered and then disappearing into some sort of equipment black hole. They'll find them one day where they find all the other government pens that have gone missing. I think, it's like the elephant's graveyard. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well done, Michelle. And so you're back in the hospital clinics are up and running again.
And not yet, but they will be as of next year. We've got to the end of the year at one of our sites, and it's very difficult to physically examine anyone on a bed or do anything like good medicine. So we've decided, and Paul Douglas is now our new medical super.
Oh, is that where he's right? We heard a rumor that he was back from Geneva. Give him our best.
I think I've been blessed by having him. We've already had a very long conversation, and we've got a meeting next week. And as you know, he's very supportive of our program.
Indeed, he is. And
very shocked to hear what I had just told you about our dilemmas that we had here, and our lack of GPs, and interesting times. So.
Well, on a personal note, give him my best. I've worked with Paul for a few years with the Detention Health Advisory Group, so he was a good travelling companion on Christmas Island, I have to say. A very level-headed person. Now, I'm not sure if there are any other questions. I did mean to say that to our audience. If you did have a question, because you are all muted, and that's by design, there is that Q&A panel down the bottom of your screen. So if you do have a question, please go to the Q&A panel and pop that in there, and we'll keep an eye on that through proceedings. And so if there are questions, we may come back to Michelle at a later time. So, all right, well, thank you once again, and I'll jump into my presentation. I think we'll probably be finishing a bit earlier today. So let's see. Okie dokie. So, the RNA competency framework. Who are we? Now, for those who may be a little bit new to RNA, I thought I'll just give just a very brief overview. So the Refugee Nurses of Australia was launched in 2016, following a meeting the year before of some of the senior refugee health nurses around Australia. And a decision was made at that meeting that we needed to get a move on and get a national focus together around refugee health nursing. And so we put a steering committee together of representatives from all the states and territories, and we described it as a professional interest group, providing a platform to exchange ideas, advocate, and develop the specialty. And you'll see in that photo, we're given a spot at the Australian College of Nursing National Forum. So they popped us into one of their main day programs on the main stage. So that was really good. So we're able to launch there in front of our colleagues and peers, wearing our Refugee Nurses of Australia t-shirts that you can see. So we were delighted about that. So we started off as a very small group, and now, as of last week, we're up to about 100. We've got 148 members across Australia, with representation, right across all the different states, including those two people in New Zealand. And even though we know that we get access from things like the website, actually we get hits from other nurses from an international point of view. And for those who might know her, that's Jan Williams there, who's the lead nurse in South Australia, presenting at one of our earlier forums. So in 2017, we had our first forum in Sydney at Liverpool, and we actually had 60 refugee health nurses come from all over the countryside, which was absolutely fantastic. It was great to get together in the one room at the one time. And one of the sessions that we did was a session around the competency framework. So it was a bit of a brainstorm session. So really, a few questions that we asked that day, easy ones. So what do you do as a refugee health nurse, and what skills do you think you need to work effectively with refugees? So we were blessed on the day by being joined by Professor Liz Howcombe to take us through the competency framework and explore some of those major themes. Now, Liz is a very well-known nurse academic and one of the leading nurse researchers in Australia in community and primary care. And she's also been the lead author of competency standards and standards of practice for things like the Australian Practice Nurses Association. So it was really good having her in the background, and for her to come back to the steering committee at a later date to talk us through looking at some of these major themes and giving us ideas about what were the next steps and how were we going to construct things. So from that, in 2018, we actually published our standards of practice. So that was quite a feat, I have to say, done in a remarkably short period of time, with a lot of blood, sweat, tears and laughter. And the preamble basically is what it says there on the screen, that we're nurses who practice within a variety of clinical environments using a primary healthcare model underpinned by the philosophy of trauma-informed care. We acknowledge the dynamics of the contemporary political environments and thus defend and advocate for the rights of the individual, family and community. We deliver care to refugee populations that is culturally informed, inclusive, sensitive and safe. So that was that was terrific, but we knew that we had to keep working. So the next forum was in 2019. That was the second RNA forum in sunny Brisbane. And oh my goodness, was it sunny? It was humid, holy dooly. Anyway, we had 45 nurses from all states and territories that day. You can see us all standing there. And the themes that we explored in the second forum included advanced practice. We had looking about the effect of refugees in the LGBTIQ plus communities, and we also continue to explore what does competency look like in refugee health nursing. So we left Brisbane with a whole lot of ideas and lots of butcher's paper with feedback from people in the group. Had been informed by a very good presentation from Marilyn Spalding, who is actually a nurse practitioner in refugee health from Melbourne, and she gave us a very insightful presentation around what does advanced practice actually look like, from her point of view. So on to Melbourne in 2020. So that's yes, that's a picture of the forum. Yeah, we're all ready to go into Melbourne, and of course COVID came along, and that made us then move online with this series of 5 presentations. But as I said in the beginning, we've actually had quite a smooth transition, but not without the help of the Ingham Institute in Sydney, and that we've been able to record and upload with hundreds of hits. So one of the reasons I've mentioned that is because one of the plans for Forum in Melbourne this year was to look at the self-competency, the RN competency framework. So what we did was put the competency framework up and out via a monkey survey. And so what I'm about to present to you is actually the results of the monkey survey that we've got back. So the competency framework is actually based on our standards of practice, and as I said, the feedback from the Brisbane Forum. And what we're trying to construct here is a framework that can provide a professional development structure for an individual nurse and for service delivery. So it's a self-rated scale and using the novice to expert approach, but we're just looking at novice, competent and expert. And we got 59 people did the survey. Now that's about 40% of our membership, so not bad. It could always be better, but when you look at the spread of the replies, I think we'll be fairly confident that we've got a representative sample. So, okay, who are we? So for the age of respondents, this is a bit of a worry, ladies and gents, is that you can see that the majority of our people who responded to this are of somewhat mature years. And of course, that's all fun and good. We're not being ageist here, but the concern is that you've got a whole lot of expertise that indeed, maybe looking to retire in the next 5 or 10 years, for instance. And we need to be mindful about that as senior nurses, about passing on the wisdom and also doing succession planning to make sure that we leave this professional interest group in good shape. Length of employment, majority of our respondents have been in refugee health less than 5 years. Now, that indeed may reflect the additional funding that a lot of the states and territories got with the additional 12,000 Syrian Iraqi cohorts that arrived. And certainly I know from my own point of view here at the Refugee Health Service in Sydney, we were given quite a lot of funding to bring on additional nurses to, to cope with the additional numbers. So, yeah, so that to me is quite a healthy figure. Now, the next slide I think is just absolutely amazing. Look at the number of people who have got who are either masters or PhD prepared. I mean, that's just fantastic. So the majority of people in this survey, have got quite a high level of nursing qualification. And I'll get you to just keep that in the back of your mind, because as we go through the standards and look how people have been rated, it may be that the results are such because we've got such a high level of educational preparation and qualification. But gosh, we're a clever bunch, aren't we? Okay, so standard one. So standard one is practices in a manner consistent with professional health systems values. So we recognise and adhere to national legislation, policies, standards of practice. It's embedded within that professional evidence-based practice, research and contemporary knowledge. Now, each of the standards actually then have 4 or 5 or sometimes 6 exemplars. Now, when I originally put this together, I've actually calculated all the results on every question, but that brought me down to about 49 slides, and I thought I could probably hear everyone snoring by the time I got to slide 47. So what I've done, I've combined all the exemplars under each standard to make just the one score for each standard. So that's what I'm presenting today. But when I send the presentation up to our wonderful Meryl Jones, who's our webmaster up in Brisbane, I'll actually send her the second preparation, which has got all the individual answers in there as well, if you're interested to see how people have answered. So overall, for this standard, where we're saying we practice in a manner consistent with professional and health system values. Oh, look at that, the logo jumped in. Majority of people, not by much, but a majority of people are saying that they're actually expert at this. So they've rated themselves as experts, with a few novices down there, and the other, people saying that they're competent. So that's number one is the experts there. So standard 2, communicates effectively. And we know it's fundamental to therapeutic relationships. And we recognise that critical role that qualified interpreters play in enabling us to do our work in everyday practice. So a lot of the standards around this was about your ability to use interpreters, to recognise the need for interpreters, to book an interpreter, to advocate for interpreters, particularly in regards to their debriefing needs, and also to advocate for the use of interpreters in the wider health community, and for the people's, for someone's right to be able to communicate safely and effectively. So probably no great surprises there as well, that the majority of our respondents believe that they're expert at doing that. And one would, promise that the fact that this is part of our everyday practice in regards to using for interpreters, we are pretty, we are pretty good at it. So no surprises there really. Okay, standard 3. This is where we're providing cultural, safe and contextually informed care. And that's around us being, knowing the importance of background and context and culture in the provision of our services. It's knowing around being able to take into account someone's migration history, their ethnicity, maybe their religion, their age, their gender, all those things that inform us in regards to how the care that we give may be nuanced, may be modified, or may be enhanced. And we do that right from the word go. We do that from the moment we look at someone's pre-migration medical that we've got in front of us, the assessment. It gives us an enormous amounts of education, right through to the moment someone literally walks in that door and we set eyes on that person. And it's those nursing assessment skills, particularly around that helps us, as I say, to modify things and to make things contextual for that person. So the self-rating here is that a lot of people rate themselves as to be expert at doing this, and you can see there that more experts than the competency of someone being competent. Okay, standard 4. Now, this was the standard that caused the most discussion and argument when we were actually putting all the standards together. And it's purely a reflection on all the different types of models of care, right from a much more medical model, I could say, with emphasis on the physical assessment, through to a more of a case management model, walking alongside somebody and for a longer period of time. But regardless of the model or the setting, the standard is that we do conduct a comprehensive nursing assessment, and it's both for individuals themselves and within the context of their family groups. So again, rather interesting, this one. So expert nurses not only conduct a thorough physical assessment, but they would be practicing at what we consider to be an advanced level of practice. So that may be that they're able to do women's health screening, for instance, so that they're able to perform a pap smear, competently do a breast assessment, right through to confidently listening to breath sounds, cardiac sounds, those type of things. So, very highly advanced nursing practice that they consistently use. So, as I say, it doesn't really matter the context of your practice. I've got a child and family team, for instance, and I know that the way that they conduct their nursing assessment, apart from being absolutely fascinating, they look for facets in that communication between a mother and a child that's way beyond my expertise. But I know I do things in my nursing practice and nursing assessments that maybe they don't do. So we all might do things slightly different, but in a lot of ways we're highly competent or actually expert as well. Okay, standard 5. Effectively plans care that meets those individual needs. And a whole lot of things, as you can imagine, come into play here. How long has someone been here? Who's here with them? Where are they? Did they arrive during COVID? Are they literate in their own language? What sort of support have they got around them? Are there other family members here? How old are they? What was their health status like before they arrived? What's the case management from settlement like around them? Have you got good settlement support people around them? So all of those things will influence the care that we can plan, and we're also very sensitive to the fact that we know that settlement is complex, settlement is often messy, there are competing demands and competing priorities, and even though we would be saying health is, without health, there's nothing else. The practical realities of settlement means things like accommodation, for instance, might bump off your next appointment because, and we need to be sensitive about that actually is the priority for that particular individual or their family. So again, most people are feeling either very competent or actually expert at doing this, and one would think that the longer you work in refugee health, the more expertise you develop there as well. Standard 6 is around engaging in health education and promotion. And again, that's that opportunity to think every encounter is an opportunity to help educate and to increase health literacy with people. And it's also around looking at those sort of health promotion activities. And just listen to what Michelle was talking about before with her clinic in Coffs Harbour. You know, one of the things that she said in her slides was apart from, you know, giving people immunisation, that was also an opportunity to see people, assess people, realise people had fallen through the cracks. So it's not that, you know, tunnel vision, I'm only here to immunise you today and nothing else. It's also that opportunity to, you know, to do a whole lot more assessment and to link people into where they need to go. So, you know, that's a very active process. And again, is often influenced by a whole lot of things, including someone's health, their own health literacy, their language skills, and all the other myriad of things that are happening in their lives as well. So again, a very nice little stepwise between novice and expert as well. And the last standard is around that advocacy about equitable health access and self-determination. And we are well placed to help shape policy and influence service delivery. And that is one of the aims of the Refugee Nurses of Australia. We have done, you know, already done some advocacy with the Department of Immigration and Border Force Home Affairs around things like on arrival disability equipment and the length of time that people are given that equipment, the range of equipment that may be available. We're about to, I've been on an online teleconference with the new Deputy Secretary of Department of Immigration, who is responsible for settlement, and expressed my concern on your behalf around the HSP contracts and the role of health and the role of refugee health services in that contract. We've also expressed concerns around how the HSP contract, what the quality and the KPIs are around that, particularly in regards to health. And, you know, I think we were given a very good hearing, and we expect that there will be further action on that. Excuse me. We've also just in the process of another letter to the department seeking advice around the vexed issues of incorrect dates of birth on people's visa documents. So we'll have a bit more to say about that in the future. We'll see how you go. And look, this is a particularly important issue now, as you know, with the changes in the SRSS and the number of people being suddenly booted out of community detention, you know, incredibly highly vulnerable people. I know here in Sydney, a lot of the advocacy that we are doing is working, starting slowly to work, but we're just providing you know, real practical support like food to people because people just haven't got anything. So the Twitter account of the Refugee Nurses of Australia have had a bit to say about that as well. So that's where we're looking for in regards to the advocacy. So most people are feeling very competent or even expert in regards to being able to put their 2 cents worth in. And that's where we need our leaders to be sitting, of course, in that competency framework there. So summary wise, where to from here? Well, we think that this actually is a useful tool for both individual nurses and for service planning. So you can certainly, if you're a manager, you know, do the get someone to do a self-assessment on themselves, and you as a manager can actually do an assessment using the same tool, and then you can compare notes. The other thing is that we probably now need to use the construct to look at developing education modules around those standards of practice. Now, that's something we have been grappling with for a while, and we'll continue to thrash that one out. Because we're only a small professional group, it's quite difficult to approach one of the, you know, the big unis or even the Australian College of Nursing around having a postgraduate certificate or modules around refugee health nursing, because we just don't have enough bang for their buck basically. So as I said, we'll continue to think about that. But our RNA Forum 2021. Now we're actually going to keep this online next year, and we'll have some other new presentations, and we'll also have a national meeting. So look out for that call of abstracts early next year, and we'll have a special place in the new forum for novice presenters. So we'll provide a safe space for someone, you know, for someone who would like to present but maybe is a bit nervous and hasn't done it before and needs a bit of help. We'll assign you a mentor and someone to take you through that process of putting a presentation together and practicing with you as well. So, you know, so any managers listening out there who are thinking about promoting some of your more junior or novice start, then this is something to think about as well. And then in March 2022, we are going to Adelaide, inshallah, God willing, COVID gone, we're all vaccinated. Looking forward to visiting the beautiful city of churches and Jan and all her crew. So, you know, hopefully we'll see you all there. So that's finished. That's the end of that slideshow, but happy to take questions. Okay, we've got quite a few people on the chat room. Let's see. Oh, now I was supposed to be looking at the chat as I was doing it. Okay, so I'm getting some messages here that there were a few little problems with that. Melissa has questions. Oh, good. Melissa has questions. Are there any questions? Doesn't look like there are any questions. Okay, all right, so it doesn't look like there is any questions. As I said, both these presentations will be posted online, and I'll put the full presentation online so you can see the answers to the individual exemplars of the standards of practice. And here we go. Nope, no other questions. Just someone saying hi. Okay, so we're going to finish a bit earlier. That's okay. So once again, thank you very much for joining us today. Didn't UTAS used to have a postgraduate certificate in refugee health? There is a question there. Yes, they used to, but no longer. So they haven't actually delivered that or offered that now for a couple of years. It was a postgraduate certificate in immigration health, as they called it, and that was useful. You know, it was good. It was good, but sadly they no longer offer that. But we do have a few spies down there, so I don't know whether we'll be able to do anything about that. So, okay, so thank you once again. Oh, sorry, I've got another question just flicked in. Can you tell us the number of nursing qualifications as well of the people that did the survey? No, the numbers of the nursing qualification. We didn't actually, the survey was sort of a binary one, so we didn't really get a sense of that. We would have to go back and approach individual members. We're just looking at the, you know, the quantity or the percentage of people actually you know, prepared and qualified at a particular level. Okay, so I'd just like to say once again, thank you to the Ingham Institute. Thank you to Michelle for that presentation today. I'd like to wish all our members a quick end of this year. Let me tell you, I can't wait for 2021. It'll be yip yip yarring all around my place, because I'm just about had this year. And well done for everybody for staying the course, being able to provide the services as best as you could. And in a lot of ways, I say, lots of innovation, and people were nimble and being able to move to a different environment, you know, online environments, using PEXIP, using Zoom, all those sort of things. We've had, on a positive note, we've actually had a few arrivals into Sydney. A few people have managed to get through the border. They've come on some of the repatriation flights that the Commonwealth Government had organised. So we've seen I think 8 patients in the last couple of weeks. So it's a start. And do be aware that there are, you know, thousands of people have been given visas to come to Australia. All their, you know, their medical examinations, their assessments were all done. They're just waiting to get the word. So if indeed the COVID vaccine comes as promised, that may be the best indicator yet that the borders will reopen. And you know what immigration's like, if the borders reopen, then you know, be prepared, because it may be that we'll get, you know, 4,000 people into New South Wales all in the space of a couple of weeks to, you know, make sure that all the numbers are in by the end of the financial year, like they have done in previous years as well. So okay, so once again, thanks very much everybody. Have a safe and happy and relaxing holiday season. If you manage to get some leave over there, look after each other. I hope the weather's okay. This time last year we were in the middle of a severe drought. Luckily that has broken for everybody. So some nice steady rain would be good. I think Queensland's needing a bit. Fraser Island certainly could do with some as well. Okay, thanks everybody. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.